Now happening. And we'll jump into our agenda, get that approved, and move forward from there. What I will say to you fellow council members, first of all, I'm very happy to be here as the confirmed public records advocate and currently as chair of the council. As you all know, this is an aspect of the job that is new to me. So if at any point any of you have any recommendations, guidance, or suggestions regarding parliamentary procedures, please don't hesitate to speak up and let me know. I look forward to relying on all of you as I move forward and get comfortable in this role. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up the agenda. If I can make that work. Share content. Okay. Okay. Now I can't see you while I'm sharing this document, so can someone let me know if you can see the agenda for today?
It's there.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So the agenda that I've written up today, it would be that we start off with approving the agenda. We approve the meeting minutes from the February 2021 meeting, after which I'll discuss my ask for someone to volunteer to be the secretary for today's meetings in order to prepare the minutes in time for the next meeting. And then we're going to discuss a draft letter from the council without the advocate being on the letter, or at least being instrumental in drafting it, in support of SB 500A to the Joint Ways and Means General Government Subcommittee co-chairs. And the way I would like that to go is I'll introduce this concept, we'll ask for any public comment, and then move on to discussion and voting on different aspects of preparing this letter, or whatever the council would like to do with the letter. So can I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
So move.
Any discussion? Or additional items for the agenda? Sorry, I think I cut somebody off. Go ahead, please.
No, I just wanted to say it's Emily and I'm here. So I'm
Hi, Emily. Thank you. Yeah, anyone else that joins the meeting, please just speak up and let me know you're here if you're a council member. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm still on aye.
I know, I'm sorry guys, moving too fast for you. Let's stick with the ayes. I'll withdraw my request for any opposed. Okay, any opposed? All right, I think the agenda is approved. Moving on to the next document. Here are the meetings that were prepared by Stephanie Clark. I'll do lots of gratitude to her for all her work to the council. If it'll let me share it, I will. Come on. Okay. Would anyone like some time to review the minutes before we move to adopt them? Okay, then let's move forward. Do we have a motion to adopt these minutes from February 5th, 2021?
So move.
Thank you, Les. All in favor?
Second.
Second,
Yes.
aye.
Thank you for seconding. And I.
Aye.
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 Hey, Todd,
am listening.
do you see that Senator Thatcher has a hand up?
I don't, I'm sorry. I'm still getting used to the system myself. Go ahead, Senator Thatcher. And I appreciate if anyone notices things like that, just point them out for me.
Okay, I don't know if you're in the middle of a motion, I didn't want to interrupt, but.
Okay, is it related to adopting the minutes?
It's just a question about process, specifically about the posting of the minutes and all that.
Okay, would it affect, well, let's go ahead and move on the vote and then we could discuss your question. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I believe we have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes. Let's start over with the ayes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the minutes from February 5th, 2021 have been adopted. Senator Thatcher.
Thank you, Todd. Where are these posted exactly? Oh, it seems like we used to get them in our emails when there was invitations to the meetings, and I might have missed it. I'm just not seeing it. Is there a special place we're supposed to go to find these, or?
You know, that's a fair point. Thank you for bringing that up. What always happens is they're posted on the PRAC's website, which lives within the Public Records Advocates website. And you're right, I think Stephanie or whomever sat as chair probably did also include them with notice of the meeting in the past. I did not do that last time, but if that works for you or you prefer to receive them in that fashion, I'm happy to continue including them in the emails noticing the meetings as well. Or at least I swear I will try to remember.
That would be helpful.
Okay, I'm going to make note of that.
Thank you, Todd.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. So barreling through here. I'd like to discuss someone volunteering as secretary to prepare meeting minutes from today's meeting in time for the next meeting. And the reason I'm asking this is obviously I'm still working on my own. I would say we've seen a relative uptick in requests for assistance. Trainings are beginning to cycle up again too, and there's just enough attention on my time that I do not want these minutes to take longer than necessary to be prepared for the members to consider and to be posted on the PRAC website in draft form for members of the public to view as well. And obviously anyone preparing the minutes will have benefit of the recording, which I'll make available as quickly as possible after this meeting is concluded to use when preparing the minutes as well. So, is anyone willing to graciously step forward and prepare just this meeting's minutes? I'm not asking anyone to become secretary for a longer period of time. That's a discussion I intend to have further down the road once we know what happens with SB 500. But today the ask is just to prepare today's meeting's minutes.
Okay, I'm giving in to my gender stereotype and I'm volunteering to take the minutes. It's Emily.
Well, Emily, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And if anyone wants to jump in and insist they do it instead, now's your chance. Because Emily has already also volunteered, as we'll discuss, to help write the letter. So I don't think it's necessarily fair that we make her do everything. Yet at the same time, I greatly appreciate any assistance offered. And Emily, you're always one of the first in line to help, and I really appreciate that.
That's nice. Thanks. Nobody has to jump in to take the minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Well, then that is settled. Let's move on to our final agenda item. And I will say that Representative Power is going to attempt to join us around 3 p.m. She's engaged with her legislative duties at the moment, but thinks she may be free around 3 o'clock to jump in and talk about SB 500 as well. But for this portion of our discussion, since this is a letter that will be coming from the PRAC itself, although it'd be nice to have her input at this point, I think we are okay to proceed and discuss it. And we're fortunate enough to have Senator Thatcher here too, who could help guide us as well. So the ask that I have, that the reason we're having this meeting is that after my discussions with the co-chairs of the Joint Ways and Means Subcommittee on General Government, who expressed great interest in having this bill heard before their committee and indicated they would do some work towards seeing if that were possible, including speaking with LFO. It came to mind and was suggested to me, and it's a suggestion I agree with, that council members should draft a letter in support of the bill, similar to how that's been done in the past. And the reason I'm making a point of saying that I don't think it should come from the advocate's office itself is that I've already kind of done the legwork as a person who's deeply invested in this bill, in part because I think it's the right bill, but obviously in part because it directly relates to my job. But given the deep bench of bipartisan public records experts we have inside and outside of the government on the council, I think your combined voices would add great weight to this letter as well. And so I think it would make sense if a member of the media and or the public, as well as a member of state or local government, work together in drafting the letter, and then having one of you then send it to the co-chairs as well. So that is the idea I'm putting out there that I'd like us to ultimately vote on. And before we move into discussion, I would love to welcome any comments from members of the public as well. And I'm going to stop presenting so I could actually see people attempting to join in or raise their hands or comment. So just give me one moment. Okay. And any members of the public who just do wish to address this issue, we will be focusing on this issue exclusively during public comments, and I ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. So do we have anyone who would like to offer any comments on this suggestion about the letter to the subcommittee?
Question, Todd, is this for, are you asking for public comment, or are you asking for comment from the members of the PRAC?
Sorry if I wasn't clear enough. I would like to start with public comments. And then after we've heard all of those, have discussion amongst the PRAC members and ultimately moving towards a vote on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. And I do see that we have multiple members, at least non-members of the Public Records Advisory Council. So when I say members of the public, that includes other public employees who are on this call and wish to voice any sort of opinion that they want to voice as well about this. Okay, well, hearing no public comment, I will close the public comment period of this discussion and open discussion up to the Public Records Advisory Council. So the idea on the table is the letter coming from the PRAC members. What I'd like us to discuss and ultimately decide is, do we think this letter is appropriate? Who will be the two representatives drafting it? Is the rest of the council okay with those two representatives and myself fleshing out the final version? And then let's choose who will present that letter to the co-chairs. And those could be individual votes if we want them to at the time that motions are made. Anyone want to enter into discussion about this from the Public Records Advisory Council?
It's Emily with a question about timeline. Like, when does this need to get done by if we decide to go ahead and do it?
Well, the revenue forecast, I believe, comes out on May 19th. I think that'll, and someone could correct me if that date is wrong. I think a lot of things will start moving after that, although, you know, agencies are having hearings now. I think the sooner we could get this letter submitted to the co-chairs, the sooner, hopefully, that'll help keep things moving forward. So, you know, this is a timeline we should work out amongst ourselves, would probably, I would suggest by next week, maybe the end of next week.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think Ways and Means subs have been hearing agency bill or policy committee bills. I think they've been focusing on the budgets. So I wouldn't carry, but I don't feel like anyone's under the gun here either. I think the tri-chairs have just started taking meetings on policy committee bills.
Todd, this is Les. Can you help me a little bit? Is there a specific request from the co-chairs for specific information, or are we addressing only the financial issues here, or is there are you looking for some general support for this overall legislation?
Yeah, thanks, Les. Well, kind of what Scott alluded to, I mean, in some essence, this is a policy bill. It's not just a straight budget for an already established agency that's just coming up for its, you know, its review during this legislative session. We're actually asking them to establish the Public Records Advocates 2.0 and then fund it appropriately as well. So it's sort of this mixed bag. So in my opinion, what I'm suggesting in terms of a letter, but obviously this is meant to be decided amongst all of us, is the letter speaks to the importance of the bill, the strength that it provides to the stabilizing force that the Advocate's Office and the Council brings to public records discussion, and then also would include an ask in the appropriate fashion for adequate funding. And I will remind you that in addition to funding the Advocate and the deputy position, there is an additional ask for two other positions, a public records analyst and an administrative assistant that would help the office increase its work and maintain stability. And so I would, you know, I think it's helpful to have that alluded to as well. And there is this statement from LFO on SB 500's site on OLIS that talks about all of this that you could refer to as well when writing the letter. I'll obviously send it to whomever's working on the letter too. So it's a little bit of everything in as short and concise a letter as possible is how I'm seeing it.
Todd, this is Mark Landauer. I do have a question that I think is important to the timeliness of this letter. And forgive me for not recalling, because I'm still in the fog of legislative session, as some of my other colleagues are, so details escape me during this time. But if I recall correctly, one of the primary components of Senate Bill 500 is to make the office independent with an independent budget. Is my memory correct on that?
Yes, yes, it would make the office independent, and it would move the existing budget from DAS COO into the Public Records Advocate's office. But of course, it would also now be standing up what is in essence a new state agency. So there would be additional funding requirements, even if the request, excuse me, for 2 additional positions is not granted. The Advocate's office will have to start paying its own way when it comes to rent, IT services, excuse me, HR, payroll, all those kinds of things. So there will be additional monies needed in it other than what would be coming from DAS.
And that is the point of my, well, you just made my point, frankly, Todd. And that is that legislators on the Ways and Means Committee are going to have to create an independent budget for this new office. As a result of that, I think it would be in our best interest to get this letter into them sooner rather than later, so that they have the airspace, if you will, to make this adjustment from previous, you know, they're going to have to do a little work here as a result of what we are asking them to do. And it would be my belief that the more time we give them to accomplish that, the better outcome will result. So I would agree with you that if we can try to get the letter finalized by the end of next week and submitted by close of business Friday of next week, that would probably be ideal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else?
Sorry, this is Michael. I'm still getting used to mute buttons after more than a year. Do we have a sense of, I mean, I looked at just now the fiscal impact statement that talks about moving the budget from DAS to the Public Records Advocate office, and you've talked about asking for additional positions, but I don't see that reflected in at least in any posted fiscal impact statement. Is that information for what exactly it is that we're thinking we're going to require financially available to us somewhere?
You know, I'll have to go back and look at the LFO. I could be confusing my own recollection with just my detailed discussions with them and the notes that I sent to them, which included asking for 2 additional positions with class and comp information and position descriptions. I know DAS has a POP or 2 POPs pending in their budget as well, maybe for those positions. Adam, maybe you want to talk about that and how that ties into the work.
Hi, everyone. This is Adam. We do have some policy option packages before the legislature, one dealing with a public record system that is a statewide enterprise system. The other, I'm not sure if I have the numbers. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'd have to look at the COO budget again to see what was requested on behalf of the Public Records Advocate Office.
Yeah, I could go back and pull that information too and provide it to the council.
So should one of us make a motion about we think this letter is a good idea? That was your first question, I think.
I think that's an appropriate place to start and make sure we're all on the same page about having that happen. And then we could move into additional motions about the form and who will be making it. or we could just do one large motion if everyone feels comfortable with what we've discussed, with the limited discussion we've had, and kind of the different aspects that I mentioned related to the letter.
Okay, so I
Well,
can make a motion that we, if people are ready for a motion to, like, do we want to write this letter? Just so we're clear whether we're discussing that concept or whether we're discussing details of it.
I would second that motion.
Was that Mark seconding?
Yes,
I think
sir.
it was Mark. The motion was, I think my motion was going to be to approve the idea of, writing this letter.
And that's how I took the motion.
Okay, thanks. You can read my mind, Mark.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion?
Well, I guess I mean, it's helpful to know that information is available to us, but if we're talking about a letter that we're trying to write on a short time frame, then it would be really helpful to have that information now, I guess. That makes sense.
And Michael, which information specifically would you like?
Like, I just would like to have a sense of what we're asking for. I guess there are two specific positions, but I have no idea, I guess, how much that costs. It seems like a reasonable thing to ask for, but I haven't looked at the numbers in terms of the work that the office is doing or the support that the secretary has been providing. And it just seems like there are a lot of things we'd want to be able to say in the letter to explain what it is we're asking for. That I am sure that information is there, but I guess I don't know that we have it in front of us today.
Well, I'm not sure how down into the weeds we need to get at this point, asking for like specific budgetary numbers, because I see this as an extension of the PRAC continuing to do the work of getting its bill passed as much as it can have a say in the process. And these letters tend to not be very long and generally not advisable that they are very long. I see this more as kind of an urging of the co-chairs to hear the bill and then work towards funding it appropriately, but I don't know if we need to actually start quoting figures within this kind of letter.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Thanks for that clarification, Todd.
Sure. But I will be happy to send out the LFO analysis that currently exists. I could send out my memo that I sent to LFO laying out details about the advocate deputy position and 2 additional positions, as well as what I viewed as appropriate, oh God, I just forgot the name of the term, but for funding the office's ability to travel and provide trainings when that becomes something that's possible again. So I'm happy to share that. And then I could also share the section of the DAS budget that has the policy option package for the 2 additional positions.
I think that'd be a great idea because, I mean, even if the letter, this is Emily speaking, even if the letter is, short and more like, just making sure the bill that we support goes through or trying our hardest to, it would be great to be able to have all those, that information at our fingertips in case lawmakers had further questions along the way, for example.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And Senator Thatcher, if I could put you on the spot here just for a moment, in your own experience, is there anything, substantive that you think this letter should include that might just be helpful and illuminating to the co-chairs when they read it?
I would just give some background, and maybe since it's been a couple years since this has, the transition was started, or the request to go independent was started, rather kind of just give some brief background, but make it very short and put bullet points in so it's easy and scannable to read. Otherwise, if it's a treatise, it's not going to get, it's going to just make people sigh and maybe not read it right away. So I'm just saying, short bullet points, readable, scannable.
Thank you. Yes, I've definitely learned the value of bullet points when preparing legislative material. Okay, any further discussion before we vote on Emily's motion? Okay, therefore, all in favor of adopting, or all in favor of writing a letter to the legislative, to the Ways and Means co-chairs of the General Government Subcommittee, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, well then the first motion passes. The PRAC will be writing a letter. Next up, and I don't know if we need to vote on this, but merely volunteers. Emily, I think you might be the only, no, I'm sorry, Les, of course you're here too. But Emily had previously volunteered to be the member of the media who would assist in drafting the letter.
But I'm happy to volunteer less.
No, I think for this particular subcommittee, it would be more appropriate to have Emily on the letter.
To have what?
You on the letter, Emily.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, let me just put it this way. I'm happy to have Emily represent the media in preparing the draft.
Todd, may I ask a quick question?
Please do.
I think this is relevant to the discussion. I'm sort of getting the impression that this letter is going to be composed by somebody, Emily, who has volunteered, and then a subsequent volunteer that's going to be signed by those individuals. It's my belief that this letter should be coming from the PRAC rather than individual members of the PRAC.
Yeah, that's my impression too.
And I just want to make sure that we're all clear on that, because I think there's a little bit of perhaps confusion about that right now. And so I'm perfectly willing to be supportive of a letter from the PRAC. And I think that may be the next step that we need to discuss here, because if there are individuals of the PRAC who may not be comfortable with that, then we may have to explore a different method, if you know what I mean, individual members of the PRAC signing it or something of that nature. So, if I may suggest that we discuss, is this letter from the PRAC or is it from individual members? I believe it's the former rather than the latter. Thank you.
Hey, Mark.
Good.
This is Emily again. I just want to say I thought that was the case as well from the PRAC. Sorry, Les, I didn't mean to speak at the same time. I can't see the video.
Less than Scott.
Yeah, no, to clarify, I agree with the motion was to become from the PRAC, so I think it's just a matter of who's doing the drafting, and I was simply enthusiastically applauding Emily representing the media side, so I didn't mean to confuse matters.
Scott?
My understanding of the motion when I voted was that we were sort of appointing the three members to draft and submit the letter as our plenipotentiaries, and it would be from the PRAC. So I think if we wanted the PRAC to vote on the matter, we'd have to have another meeting on the calendar, which, no offense to all of you, I'm protecting my calendar as much as I can right now.
Yeah, I'm glad we've had this discussion. The motion was for the PRAC to write. The letter would come from the PRAC. It would be speaking in the PRAC's voice, but the next discussion would be on who would draft and submit that letter on behalf of the PRAC. We are entrusting these members, myself included, to write this letter in their voice and submit it. Yes. Does that affect anybody's vote on wanting to draft a letter? Does anyone need an additional motion to clarify?
I have a process question then. Okay, so you're saying like we draft the letter and then the PRAC doesn't have to come back together to review it and approve it, that they just put their trust in the hands of the three of us, whoever it is, or the three of anyone else who wants to volunteer, and we sign it on behalf of the entire PRAC without anybody reading it? Is that the process?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what happened previously? in a.
Mark's got a good memory on that. I bet.
Scott says yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did the last time we did a letter. Although I don't remember what we were writing about.
Unfortunately, neither do I at this moment.
I'm sure it was erudite and eloquent and all that, but yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
It was always my belief that the letter would be coming from the PRAC. Thank you.
Okay. So, right, we got step 1 down. The letter is coming from the PRAC. We have Emily as our member of the media who is willing to draft it. I am volunteering as the advocate to work with Emily and a member of state or local government to complete the letter for one of them to then submit it. So I think having clarified those points, we now need a volunteer from state or local government. And don't make me mute you all as you tumble over each other to volunteer.
Caution, speed trap ahead. I'm driving, and so my car's talking to me, but I can help out. This is Kim Thatcher.
Thank you, Senator Thatcher. Anyone else in government volunteering to help write the letter? Remember, this is the PRAC's bill that we're championing here.
Yeah,
go ahead, Emily.
Get at least somebody. Can we just at least get somebody who's a government rep who is additionally to the senator on the PRAC, at least willing to like review a draft?
Mark Landauer is volunteering.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. That's great. So someone will have to tell me, do we now need a vote charging us with writing that letter and submitting it on behalf of the PRAC, or is everyone volunteering in our discussion sufficient? I'll need a little education around that point, please.
Sufficient.
Thank you, Mark. And then is it acceptable to the PRAC that we leave it to the drafters of the letter to decide if it's Emily or Mark that will be submitting it at the time that we're ready to submit it?
I would say leave it to whoever reviews it last to hit send with the appropriate CCs.
I'm fine with that. And that doesn't require a vote either, is that correct?
I don't think it requires a vote, Todd. I do think that we need to ensure that we do have the right people. I do think that this needs to go to the co-chairs of the Ways and Means as well as the vice chairs of the subcommittee as well. That's just my personal opinion, but we will definitely get it to the co-chairs of the subcommittee at a minimum, and probably carbon copy the remaining members of that particular committee and the chairs of the full Ways and Means Committee. I just think that that's the proper approach. So I don't think that we need to get into that fine of detail as to who gets carbon copies, but it would be my belief that those would be the appropriate people.
That sounds reasonable to me and doesn't raise any concerns. Anyone else want to weigh in, or are we okay?
Yeah, there are people that, in addition to that list, it's a great list, Mark. Are there other people in addition that anybody thinks should, be good to give a heads up to this letter?
I don't, Emily. And I'm sorry, I don't see names. I just see numbers. I just think, again, if we can hit all the members of I think it's Transportation, Economic Development, Todd, that the subcommittee where 500 was sent to. Forgive me.
It hasn't been sent to a subcommittee.
Oh, it hasn't been. It's at the full Ways and Means.
Yes, my presumption has been it would go to general government, which is why I met with those co-chairs, but it hasn't been assigned, and that's part of the desire in getting this letter out to build some momentum around having it assigned to a subcommittee or the full committee, because it could go either way, I believe, but general government seems like a likely path.
Well, the other thing that sometimes happens, and Senator Thatcher can certainly correct me, but I've seen bills sent to Ways and Means that are never taken up but are incorporated into larger bills. So perhaps what we can do is I can have a further discussion with somebody, staff at Ways and Means committee, to decide where the most appropriate either subcommittee or full committee that we send this thing to. If that's okay with the PRAC, of course.
I think it's appropriate for anyone to utilize their knowledge in, you know, a way that makes sense to assist the bill along the normal course that you would with any other bill that was of interest to your constituency or employer. So I think that works.
Yeah, it sounds like that'd be helpful, Mark. Thank you.
Well, great. I think we managed to cover it all today, everybody. It's 3:10 p.m. I have no reason to keep you here any longer unless anyone has anything else they'd like to discuss relevant to this letter. Well, great. Hearing nothing, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, everyone. I look forward to talking to you again soon, and best of luck to all of us on SB 500 and this legislative session. Take care.
Thanks, Todd. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.